Sail on, silver bird. Sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, when darkness comes. La-di-da-di-da, di-da. Okay. How's that for an intro? That was beautiful, sweetie. Yeah. A little Simon and Garfunkel. Yeah, go back in the deep tracks. That's right. If I'm gonna sing Simon and Garfunkel, I'm gonna sing the old songs. I don't like their new stuff. Do Simon and Garfunkel have new stuff? I don't even think they're still alive. They're still alive. Oh. Okay, hey, Boozhoo, and welcome to Boozhoo Nanaboozhoo, the podcast about Ojibwe language and culture. Enough screwing around. I would like to offer an apology. I need to gagi zom. I need to apologize. You know, it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong. And I am that big man. Nima Nendam, I'm sorry. I feel bad. I'd like to offer an apology. If you were offended, if I may have offended you, then I'm sorry if you were offended. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry I was starting late. Sorry we're on Indian time. Those are just the Ojibwe words of the day. I'm a big believer in apologies, but most of the time when people apologize, they give that a sort of non-apology apology. Oh, I'm sorry if I offended you. You know, if I offended you, like there's no way that person can tell what the offense possibly is, so he's just doing the lawyer. You know, oh, I'm so sorry if I offended you. If you had your feelings hurt, which had nothing to do with me, sure, I apologize. Gagi zom, apologize. Apologies can be a real passive-aggressive thing. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt. But I'm not sorry that Brandy Marie is here. Boozhoo, Brandy Marie. Mino Giga Je. Brandy Marie's here, sweetie. Boozhoo, Brandy. Oh, Brandy's loving the music. I think Brandy likes the old songs too. And then there's old Daniel Black. Good afternoon from Scotland. Boozhoo to you guys, old and new. Hey, Daniel Black. Boozhoo Niji. Daniel Black's here, sweetie. Boozhoo, Daniel. He's saying hello. It's the afternoon in Scotland. Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. On behalf of America, I would like to apologize to Scotland. You know, you can use an apology to really boost up yourself. I would like to apologize to the people of Scotland. You know, that wasn't cool what we did to your people. What did we do to the Scots? You know, there's more to the Scottish people than their tape. All right, you guys? I'm so tired of the racism, the stereotyping of Scottish people. They're not all Scotch tape. Oh, yeah, they're so transparent and sticky and cheap. You know? That's not our way. So I would like to offer a gagi zom, an apology, on behalf of planet Earth to the people of Scotland. You know, for too long. What else? Oh, and the liquor, Scotch. I've never actually met anybody who's ever drank scotch. Scotch and soda. On behalf of the people of planet Earth, on behalf of the people of the plane of Earth, I would like to say, Nima Nendam, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that when people think of Scotland, all they can think of are kilts, scotch tape, the nasty tasting liquor, scotch, and Ewan McGregor. Those are the only things that we know about Scotland. And that's not right. Why in the 54 years that I've been walking in this domed covered flat plane of existence, haven't I bothered to learn anything about your people? You know why? It's racist. So, Nima Nendam, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you're offended by the rest of the world not really paying much attention to Scotland. Yeah. Oh, England. Ooh, look at them. Can't get enough of England. We'll let them colonize you and nobody says a thing. Talk about decolonizing. They should decolonize Scotland. What am I talking about? Okay. Daniel Black says, I missed something with the need to Gagi's home. Yeah. Yeah. Apologies are popular in the age of Twitter and political correctness. Every week there's a new celebrity who's got to get up there and apologize for something. Yeah, when I was in college one time, I was at this party, and we thought it'd be funny if we dressed up like a black slave and a white KKK guy. So we took pictures, and I would like to apologize. You're like, what? That's weird. Hey, Chris is here. Boozhoo Chris. And Potawatomi, we don't have a word for I'm sorry. Why apologize if you've never intentionally do something to hurt another? Even in Ojibwe, this Nima Nendam, it kind of means I'm sad. I know. It doesn't really mean I apologize. It means I feel bad. Gagi's home, I guess, is to admit fault or whatever. But yeah, the apology is weird because, the formal apology, it's become such a political tool. I'm going to tell you something. I did not have relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. You listen to me and you listen good. Old Bill Clinton just wagging his finger in our face. That's why it's so rude to point. Because you're like Bill Clinton. I did not have relations with that lady, Miss Lewinsky. I'm going to tell you again. And then, a week later, all right, I apologize. I did indeed have relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. But to be fair, I will make her famous and a millionaire for the rest of her life, somehow. But, still, it's no excuse for those consensual acts between two adults. Yeah, it's gross. Yeah, it's way worse than anything Donald Trump was ever accused of. I mean, you kids, younger kids won't remember this, but Bill Clinton was a famous apologizer. Even before he became a president, he had to get out there and apologize. Oh, yeah, I cheated on my wife, sorry. But I promise, if you make me your president, I'll never cheat on her again. And we all went, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a good apology. I like him. He's nice. Yes, he cheats on his wife, but, give him a chance. And he goes in there, what's he do? First thing, cheats on her again. But, little chubby intern. I don't even want to tell the children what happened in there. Some of you guys are old enough to remember. But, yeah. It was weird to have the president apologize to you. I'm sorry. Well, not only did I do this really gross thing, then I lied about it. I made you guys feel bad for you keep accusing me. You know. So, having said all that, real sorry. You know. We were talking about 9/11 the other day. I heard somebody say this once. It was so profound. Speaking of apologies, because on the other side of an apology is forgiveness, you know. And there was a Christian guy came out after 9/11, and he goes, 9/11 was a missed opportunity for the Christians to get up and say, you know what, we forgive you. That would have went a long way in the whole culture war of, Christians. If Christians could have gone up there and said, you know what, it's not our place to judge you, even after the attack, And now, in hindsight, I don't even think it had anything to do with Islam. I think they probably just profiled a bunch of poor young Islam guys. Hey, man. Tell you what, we're going to let you, go to strip clubs and try cocaine the night before. I don't think 9/11 had anything to do with Islam. Oh, we're so jealous of your freedom. That's what they said. But anyway, that would have been a good day to come out and, forgive. Because Christians are supposed to be the great forgivers. I mean, I think God's supposed to be the great forgiver, but, we missed an opportunity there. Too soon? What else is going on here? Jim Dunn's here. Boozhoo Jim. Daniel Black is here. There's a lot of Scottish ancestors in the States and Canada, so we are sorry for that, but I'm Canadian. How could you forget that? Oh, that's right. Daniel's a Canuck. What am I saying? But yeah. Daniel also says, rebuild Herdian's wall and keep the English out. Keep the English out. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, Grieving Turtle's here. Boozhoo, Grieving Turtle. We were just apologizing to Scotland, even though Daniel is a Canadian. But I'm just really ignorant. I never bothered to learn anything about anything. If I don't know my own culture, well, you want me to learn Scottish culture? Well, there's also the Bay City Rollers. I think they're Scottish. SATURDAY. Night. But mostly I just need to apologize for, not taking more than 30 seconds to decide what today's Ojibwe word of the day should be. I just saw it written there. The book happened to be open. At some point, I wrote down the word for apologize. And then, if it's just one word, the letters get really big. And so I had to, add some more letters so it's not so big. All right? I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sweetie. Oh, that's okay. No, I mean it. I'm really sorry. And I mean it too. That's fine. Look, I don't know how many other ways I can say it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry times a million. And a million times over, that's fine. Should we have like an on-air fight? Oh, you think you want to have an on-air fight? Let me tell you something, you fat jerk. What? Jeez. Where'd that come from? I was kidding. I thought we were going to fight. Hey, 'cause I didn't know you were going to pull out the big guns. I was doing like playful, boyfriend-girlfriend fight, Like, no, I love you more. And you insult my physique. I don't know. I gain weight faster. It's not my fault. I'm totally kidding. Yeah. It's just interesting you would choose that as your joke insult. You're not fat. Yeah. I'm not as skinny as I used to be. You know? I keep telling people, oh yeah, I got my size 32 waist. I have the same pant size as when I was in high school. Yeah, except big difference is I didn't walk around shaped like an ant, pinched off into sections like I do now. I didn't have this enormous, what do they call it, muffin top. You know? The winter has not been kind to my belly. It keeps growing. I gotta cut out the sweets. I'd like to apologize to my belly for all the candy I've been putting into it. Anyway. Okay. Daniel Black says, rebuild. Oh, wait. Grieving Turtle's here. Did we say hello to Boozhoo Grieving? And Ojibwe by birth, Canadian by default. Oh, there you go. Yeah. I suppose that's like me too. Only, American. Oh, I'm a Native American. Oh, well, I'm a First Nation. All right. Are you so sure? Do you trust your history books so well to presume that there were no nations on this Turtle Island before us? Oh, we're the First Nations. Well, this is just going to be a term that they change in a couple of years. First Nations will become the Chippewa of later on. They keep changing our names to confuse us. Cherokee people. Play fight on screen. Well, you did ask. Yep. I never ask you where you go after I leave you in the morning. We go our different ways to separate situations. It's not that easy anymore. I think if we ever fight, we should do it just to like a musical. Yeah, it'll be like, stop right there. No, I gotta know right now. Before we go any further, do you love me? Will you love me forever? Do you need me? Will you never leave me? Will you make me so happy for the rest of my life? Will you take me away? Will you make me your wife? Oh, let me sleep on it. Baby, let me sleep on it. We got to redo that song, huh? We could. That might be one of the next Boozhoo Nanaboozhoo musical numbers. Me and Natasha singing Meatloaf and whoever that chick was. You young people won't remember this. But back in the days of the grandfathers, they had these things called records. They were big, they called them vinyl, but I think they were plastic. I don't know what they were made of. I think they were originally vinyl and they became plastic. But anyway, they called them records and they recorded music. And there was one record that recorded a series of songs by a rather chubby man, not by today's standards, but by a man named Meatloaf. And he wrote a song, or I guess somebody else wrote it, but he sang it, called Paradise by the Dashboard Light. And in that song, he talked about how to talk your way into having relations with that girl, Miss Lewinsky, or whoever. And then in the moment he keeps on trying to talk her into going, making out with him in a car. She finally puts the brakes on it. She's like, stop right there. I got to know right now. Will you love me? Will you love me forever? Do you need me? Will you never leave me? Will you make me so happy for the rest of my life? Will you take me away? Will you make me your wife? And he keeps on saying, let me sleep on it. Listen, I got to sleep on it. I'll give you an answer in the morning. Thinking that by the morning he can say, no, I guess not, But he finally says, okay, fine, yeah, I will marry you. Can I please? And, but then the sweet part is, it's sweet and not, but he says he would never break his vow. He marries her up, but now he can't wait to the end of time. He wishes, I gotta know right now. He wishes that the end of time would hurry up and arrive because he can't spend another minute with this lady. And the moral of this story is don't get married to some girl. The only reason you married her is so she'd, put out. And I think that's the moral of the story. But that song is so old. It still had baseball on the radio. Do they still have big guys describing baseball games on the radio? They must. For people driving in their cars. What a boring thing to do. Listen to somebody describe a baseball game. All right, second inning, 2 down, 1 on first base, 1 on second base. And old, Jeremy Smith is up to bat, and he swings and he misses. Today's baseball game is brought to you by Pepsi Bottling of Nymore Bemidji or whatever. Actually, that felt pretty good. Maybe I should be a sports announcer. And coming on the field, a bunch of masked idiots who do whatever they're told. Here come the sheep, all wearing a uniform. Yep. And the tall, overweight guy goes on first base. He doesn't need to run very fast, just needs to stretch. And the worst player is on his way out to right field because it gets the least amount of action. And second base, the only real, or shortstop, the only real athlete of the team. We were talking about my Little League days the other day. When I was a kid, everybody played baseball. No, not everybody. Every boy played baseball. Every kid either had his own glove or could borrow one from his older brother. And every house had at least one baseball. If you didn't have a bat, you could use a broomstick. But, we came up with weird rules. Sometimes you'd only have 5 people playing baseball together. So you'd have to have invisible men. You'd have a pitcher and a catcher, and you'd be on bat. And the pitcher would pitch the ball, and then you did it. Or maybe one outfielder. But then, you get on first base, and you go, well, you just ran out of teammates. What are we going to do? So you go, okay, there's an invisible man on first base. And you run back, and you bat again. And so then if you get to first base, your invisible man gets to second base. Problem is, if they can throw to second base before you get to first base, invisible man is out. And my invisible man, he had a limp. They'd be like, no, invisible man's still running. He has that limp. He's got a fake leg. And, but, so you'd have to come up with new rules. But I remember one kid on our team, old Brian Kirby. Brian Kirby did have a fake leg. Had an artificial limb. When he was really little, he was one of those kids. This is how old I am. When Brian was in kindergarten, he had one of those big black feet, where you had to wear the special shoe because he had one leg that was, messed up. Well, then he had that amputated, and he had a prosthetic limb. He had a plastic leg, and it didn't slow him down at all. He was a really good athlete. He could ski on one thing, He could jump up on a table with just one leg, But he was our catcher, and so he would sit on his leg in a weird way. His leg would never fall asleep because it wasn't there. I remember Brian getting up, and how you'd have the guy batting, but then there'd be the next guy up. They called him, oh, you're on deck. So you'd get up, you'd put on your helmet. You'd start swinging that bat try to look tough, look confident, try to intimidate, What you want to hear when you go up to bat is the other team go, okay, back up, because they assume you're going to hit it really far. Well, Brian would just stand there. He wouldn't even swing the bat and stretch. He would just stare at the pitcher and bang the bat against his leg, against his foot really hard, like his ankle. It would make a ring sound because we had those aluminum bats, like bing, 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 bing. And the pitcher would be freaking out. I was like, how come that kid's hitting himself with a bat? How come that's not breaking his bones? And you get up there and he does a wail on it. But, yeah, we were kind of a misfit bunch. No uniforms. Well, baseball uniforms are a funny thing anyway. During my time, it was kind of in between the, it's when they wanted to return to the traditional looking baseball uniforms. Because we did have uniforms in high school. But in the Little League summer program, there were no adults who were in charge of that thing. So we just wore our jeans and t-shirts and sunglasses. Just looked like a bunch of thugs hanging around on a baseball field. Other team would show up in their, baseball uniforms, striped. Got those socks, those tight socks that go way up. And cleats. And matching everything, And they would look like, holy man, we're playing professionals. Talk about being intimidated. But by the time we got to high school, then the school had uniforms. But when I was a 7th grader, you would get the oldest uniforms, the stuff the high schoolers quit using, from the 50s or whatever. So we had those big old wool, heavy, loose-fitting baseball uniforms. But in the 70s and the early 80s, what was popular was the super tight polyester, form-fitting. That's what the cool baseball players wanted to wear. They were still wearing knickers, but they'd just be tight. It kind of looked almost like a football outfit with no shoulder pads. And, so the kids would fight over the best uniform. But then, by the end of the 80s, everyone was going, you know what? I don't want to wear these tight baseball uniforms. It leaves nothing to the imagination. Let's go wear those old wool ones. I don't care. Because it's Minnesota, too. It's not like it was real hot in the spring. They're like, yeah, give me some wool pajama baseball, So then they tried to go back to wearing the old style. Clothing was better in the old days. Like in the 50s. Everybody wore suit coats and ties, and hats, overcoats. When wearing your rubbers meant something over your foot. That's what's going on over here. Grieving Turtle says, I'm off to the rink. And remember, never apologize for something you intentionally did if the results are what you wanted. Yeah, don't apologize for something you intentionally did. And if the results, I'm sorry if you're offended. People who love NASA, that would be disingenuous. I'm not sorry for making fun of, Buzzed Aldrich. Daniel Black says, Jessica, Amino Giga Jabe. Is Jessica here too? Boozhoo, Jessica. Jessica's here, sweetie. Boozhoo, Jessica. Grieving Turtle says, in my childhood, Allie, a huge tree was first base. Yeah, me too. We had first base was a tree. Sometimes you just run into it. Tar lines crossed were second base, and third base was the Lopez garbage. Yeah. Yeah, you just have to have things be, okay, this is first base. You got to touch the tree and keep going. Yeah. Sometimes you might run around the outside of the tree to keep from being tagged. Yeah. I still remember this. It's weird that what your mind... your memory is often just a snapshot, random snapshot, and you don't know why. But I remember the last time we played baseball at my friends Terry and Chris Oslin's house. When I was a little kid, I had friends who lived downtown. The school was up on a hill. They called it Hilltopper. And you could ride your bike down the hill. This big, super dangerous hill that had a traffic turn with no stop sign or anything. After Little League, there'd be just an army of kids on bikes going down this very steep hill. But LaPorte's so small, there's rarely traffic. But anyway, we'd go down to the Oslins and play baseball. And, they just had a little house on the lake there. So a big yard. And then, home run was where the long grass started. It was the other property line that didn't get mowed. And every summer we played there at some point. We just hung out there a lot. Terry had a cool mom, Pat. And Pat would make Kool-Aid and cookies for us and call us in once in a while to have cookies and take a break from baseball or basketball or whatever. We would play just whatever sport there. But by the time we were sixth graders, we were really good baseball players. And we went out there to play just like we had many summers before. And the first pitch, overhand, fast pitch, whatever, Terry knocks it out of the yard into the long grass. So we got to drop our gloves, go out in long grass, look for the ball for 20 minutes, and finally find it. Go back in. He has a home run. Next pitch, same thing. And then we spend another 20 minutes, and we're finally like, you know what? This isn't going to work anymore. We can't play baseball every time we hit it out of the home run area. And we never played baseball again. I mean, we did up to high school, I suppose, but we didn't know that would be the last time that not only did we quit playing baseball in the backyard, it would be the last time that we'd ever play at the Oslin's house. Anything. It was that summer before high school. For boys, there's the last summer before you get your driver's license is a big deal, at least in the old days. It's not like boys were being asked out by older girls. So we didn't go on dates or enter the adult world until after we actually got our driver's license. Girls could have some experience with going to movies and parties and being with teenagers in cars before that summer of when you turn 16. But for boys, they're like little kids until they get their driver's license. Then they quit playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it's that same summer where you take your action figures and you just start shooting them with your BB gun. You just go, well, I'm not going to throw away my toys, but let's see what they look like when I blow them up with fireworks, with firecrackers. So, but I remember the last time we played together at the Oslins. I don't know. Makes me a little sentimental. But like I said this once too, if you knew it was going to be the last time, you would pay more attention. Like the last time you pick up your child. Most people don't remember the last time they held their child in their arms. You would think that would be something important. You remember the first time you held your baby in your arms. But the last time, because the last time was, holy man, you're getting big. No, I can't carry you. You're going to have to walk into the house. Carry me. No, you're too big. And it's not sentimental, but in a way, it's really sad. It's, oh yeah, there will come a day. It will be the last time you ever hold your child in your arms. Everybody. Last time you ever do, not to get morbid and talk about death again, but there's always a last time for everything. And you never know when it's going to be. This could be the last Boozhoo Nanaboozhoo podcast. If I spill coffee on this laptop, that's it. Then, it's back to Sesame Street for us, I guess. Which, by the way, what? That's it. Sesame Street's over. I'm canceling Sesame Street. Like cancel culture. Well, count me in. I'm no longer anti-cancel culture because I want to cancel Sesame Street. In spite of everything, it's that little Nas guy. Everyone's talking about this horrific satanic video that just came out that shows just pornographic homosexual acts in hell with this rapper who named himself Little Nas X, or I don't know. I want to do a whole show on that too. Just quit naming yourselves. But so he's like the most offensive satanic dude since Marilyn Manson or Madonna or somebody. But getting his start by being a guest on Sesame Street. Sesame Street said, yeah, we should get that guy on our show. I think it's important for little kids to learn their alphabet from somebody like this. I don't even know his name, but you guys probably know what I'm talking about. He has a shoe out by Nike, and it's like a satanic shoe. It's like I think it's called the Satan shoe. And it's got the number 666 on it. It's got a Bible verse. The pentagram. It's black and red. So fine. Do what you want. Welcome to America. Freedom of speech. You can be as satanic as you like. But I don't need to see you on Sesame Street. I started to wonder about Sesame Street. Well, I've always wondered about it. But I noticed they were still just kind of sucking up to celebrities when they had Dave Matthews. Dave Matthews was on Sesame Street. And I just think that's become like something that the machine, if you want to be in the entertainment world, you start on Jimmy Kimmel's show, and then you move over to Sesame Street. And Sesame Street doesn't care about, I don't know. I guess I don't care about kids. But, people kind of trust that they can plop their kid in front of Sesame Street. And I'll go, well, I'm not saying he's going to learn how to speak fluent Spanish, but you can count on, eat your cereal in front of, Grover here. He's not going to have some satanic rapper promote sodomy, and Satanism. I used to think you could kind of count on Sesame Street to be sort of wholesome, but no. They've gone up the deep end. So I think being uncreative and not funny and not trying very hard, I used to think that was their biggest shortcoming. But now I see, and they're probably supported by tax dollars. This multi-million-dollar international company called Sesame Street. Jessica Gonzalez says, "Oh wow, he was on Sesame Street last May. I just looked that up. Gross." Yeah. And I I'm old and out of touch, so I didn't know who he was until I saw a news program on him, and they showed this skinny black guy with like a cowboy outfit walk into a elementary school gym, And the whole gym erupted. Like, it was just one of those moments where I go, oh, I don't know who's famous anymore. Because clearly these kids see, who is this? Lil Nas X. But they were all cheering him and giving him the whole star treatment. I went, wow, okay. Let's look into who is this guy? Oh, a Nike. He's endorsed by, he's got his own shoe. For $400 or $666 or whatever. Then I saw that video. Hikes. And I don't watch the video because we're just spreading that nonsense. I'm sorry I saw it. But it's really dark and gross. It's just everything that people complained about Madonna and Prince and Black Sabbath or whoever, times 10, They just gradually worked their way up until here it is. It's just your nightmares in a music video. But, yeah. But you know what else? Well, let me see what's going on down here. Weesanese says, you mean the people who taught us to love monsters have impure motives? Wow, yeah. That's a really good point. The people who taught us to love monsters. Maybe they were always kind of set up to degenerate us. Yeah, they made us love monsters. Cookie Monster. They normalized Cookie Monster definitely normalized what like tweaker behavior. Somebody whose mind is shot through excess gluttony, there's something creepy about Kermit too. That song Rainbow Connection has some weird mind control stuff. How's that go now? Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. The lovers, your rainbow connection lover. Okay. Yeah, that's appropriate for a 5-year-old. The lovers, the dreamers, and me, all of us under its spell. Under what spell are you talking about, Kermit? All of us under its spell. We know that it's probably sex magic. Magic. Have you been half asleep? Have you been half asleep? Have you been in a trance? And have you heard voices? Have you heard voices like schizophrenia? I've heard them calling my name. I've heard it calling my name. That's not normal behavior. If you hear your name being called, in certain circumstances, very rarely, maybe once in a lifetime, you might hear your name on the wind. But if you hear voices, generally you have a mental condition. I've heard them calling my name. Is it the sweet sound that calls the young lady or something? I don't know the rest of the lyrics. Some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection. The lovers, the dreamers, and me. I don't know. Now I think they're singing about something else. We're going to find a rainbow connection. And again, I don't care, but that rainbow used to belong to the Christians. That was a whole Noah and the Ark thing. And they co-opted it. Gay pride took the rainbow right from the Bible and said, no, this is our symbol. That rainbow connection doesn't mean a connection to God and the Creator. The rainbow connection is a connection to the rainbow culture. I don't know. See, now you got me thinking about these monsters. Because also remember Snuffleupagus? When Snuffleupagus first came out, only Big Bird could see him. And the whole running gag was that Big Bird was getting to know this enormous, almost as big as Big Bird, enormous two-man Muppet. And he was really slow talking. Hello, Bird. And he would just barely get off camera when the next person would walk around the corner. And Big Bird would say, hey, you just missed him. My friend Snuffleupagus was here. And like Marie would be like, Big Bird, we talked about this. Snuffleupagus is a make-believe friend. It's not real. You quit saying that. And they didn't believe him. Well, then the article came out where some focus group said, you know what, that's not good. We shouldn't teach kids that if they tell adults something, the adults aren't going to believe them. But you go, that was weird. That they set up, who is Snuffleupagus? And so then Snuffleupagus came out, and they're like, oh yeah, I guess he is real. Oh, we didn't believe you, Big Bird. Just like, that crazy story you said about your camp counselor. Come on. He's a man. Men don't do that, I don't know. I don't trust anything anymore. Jessica Gonzalez. And they've had a man in a dress on Sesame Street too. Yeah. This whole... let me go back. Jessica says, there was a Lady Gaga and the Muppet special too, featuring RuPaul. Yeah. And they've had a man in a dress on Sesame Street. So now they're on board with the conditioning of children to embrace cross-dressing, transgenderism. You know for a fact they're going to have a transgendered child on that show. I'm sure, did I see that there are like Black Lives Matter supporters? It's just so weird that after, they went through all of the 80s and the 90s and the first half of the 2000s, as far as I know, not being overtly political. But in this crazy time we're living in, for some reason, in the age of Aquarius, now we see RuPaul on Sesame Street. And if you're not on board with that, you're just meant to take it and grin and bear it. There's no tolerance of people who don't embrace transgenderism for any reason, religious, the least of many. I'm just aesthetically against it. I'd be all for transgenderism if I couldn't tell. But I've never met a transgender person who wasn't obviously a guy with mental illness. Me personally. In my many years and frequenting gay clubs, But this weird spell that's on everybody because of every TV show. And, so this was the point of Lil Nas. So it's illegal to show sexually explicit material to children. That's already a law. But what, the beast decides is sexually explicit keeps changing that definition. So if you watch that video, it's just a male version of Madonna. And it's really gross. Really, really gross. Not just gross, but it's, it'll bum me out. But that guy is grooming children. He's destroying their innocence. And it's just everything the old ladies would have said back in the day about Elvis. But now it's really true. Ugh. And I know it's not just him. I don't know if he's even a real person. He's probably a puppet. But the whole organization, the whole, why are they doing this? Why do they want our children? Got RuPaul reading children's stories. Fighting for the rights of... Well, it's more of that where people just can't tell good from bad, right from wrong. People can't think anymore. They're like, I didn't think we had to explain why we don't want weirdos near the children. How dare you? Just because I'm a man who identifies as a woman, who wears high heels and just crazy makeup and dresses like a demon or a freak or just outrageous in every way. And I've never met one who didn't have a drinking and drug problem. But anyway, so by most standards of just common sense, you go, okay, there's a weirdo. He's like, how dare you? All I want to do is go in and teach the children that they can choose if they want to be like me, a man wearing pantyhose and lipstick, and you bless the little children's hearts that they don't just, there's two reactions. One is terror because it's freaky and scary. It's scarier than a clown to see a man dressed up like a woman. And or just indifference and confusion. They're like, what? But there's apparently an agenda to get your kids to celebrate all that depravity, And it all works together because, like, right now I'm really self-conscious about saying, it's just weird that we live in a world where you have to justify why you don't want a man coming into the girls' bathroom. So, excuse me, my daughter's going in there. Well, I identify as your daughter. It's like, well, I don't care. You're clearly a weirdo. How dare you? Do you know that whatever argument that says you're not a weirdo, there's no such thing as being a weirdo anymore. I identify as a little girl. So I'm going to go in and take a poop next to your daughter. It's like, no, I'd rather you didn't. How dare you? You're intolerant. It's like, wait, no. What? It's like, I'm not intolerant to weirdos. All my friends are weirdos. I just don't want you pooping next to my little girl. But it's getting so strange and crazy because that's what the news does too. It makes you have to defend something you'd never think you would. It's like, what's her name? I know I'm just going to sound conservative here, but I don't know her name because I don't follow sports. But there's some purple-haired, I think she plays basketball or soccer, and she's always crying around about not making as much as the men's basketball team or soccer team. And she makes $200 million a year or $200,000 a year. I don't know. She makes more money than I will ever make. And she's like, this is unfair. How come, women only make 70 cents on the dollar? And so you got to go, what? No, wait. And she goes, I do the same thing. Yeah, I think she's a basketball player. I do the same thing as LeBron James, and he's a millionaire. We do the same work, but why am I paid less? And then you go, no, wait. You don't do the same thing. You play women's basketball. You could not compete in men's basketball. And nobody watches women's basketball. It's not the same thing. It's like saying, well, I played Little League. How come the Twins made millions of dollars? But no, I played on a team in LaPorte in the summer that had no name. We were the Little League team in LaPorte. Well, we're playing LaPorte. We weren't even the Wildcats because we had no uniform. You didn't hear me go, hey, it's sexist. Oh, that's racist. What, because I'm native, you can't pay me for playing Little League? How come there's not more, chubby 5th grade Native American kids playing third base in the pros? Whatever. But I'm sure she's probably been on Sesame Street too. I don't know. I think Michelle Obama was on there. Speaking of transgenders. I got to quit talking about the transgender people. I don't want to get in trouble. This show's not about that. Oh, we're the Two Spirits. Would you shut up with that? That's from a movie. That's from Little Big Man. We are LGBTQ 2S. They co-opted the new agey Sioux idea of gay being two spirits. In the 90s, they came up with the term two-spirited. And, there's really not a whole lot of information about the traditional roles. I mean, the one thing we do know is that we had traditional gender roles. And sometimes people go, oh, yeah, well, the Native Americans recognized 4 genders. It's like, well, yeah, I guess. You recognize some people are gay. If you want to call that a different gender, that's whatever. But then these new people, they take, we're LGBTQ2S T Q, QQ. Because then there's this questioning, like that's a gender. Hey, I wonder if I'm gay. Oh, that's a whole new category. Oh, wait, just give me a second. No, I'm straight. Oh, okay, now I'll put you in this category. Wow. What did they assign you at birth, sweetie? They said I was a woman, so I decided to walk around in pink. Yeah, that's why I wear blue, because they assigned that to me at birth. A bunch of sexists. You want to go up here and say hello to the people? Sure. All right, you guys. I always start out in a kind of a positive mood, and then by the time I'm done ranting, I'm usually kind of crabby. Now I'm mad at Sesame Street and Satan. All right, you guys. Miigwech, Bizendawieg. Thank you for listening. And it's really great to see you here, all of you Boozhoo crew. And to you new people, too, by the way. Can you believe it? We got like 100 people on our Facebook page now. I'm wondering, should I do a Facebook live stream? Maybe I'll stop in on Facebook this afternoon and tell them to come over here where we we diss Sesame Street. And but yeah, miigwech bizendawieg. I will see you again. Oh, before I go though, this will be the transition this time. This song by Michael Lyons and Natasha and I is called Crashing Down. And up next, the lovely and talented Natasha. All right. The song is called Crashing Down. And it's written by Michael Lyons.
Crashing down, crashing down, crashing down, crashing down, crashing ashes, ashes, crashing all fall. Crashing ashes. crashing down, crashing down, crashing, 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 crashing down, 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 crashing
Hoka hey! Hi everybody! Boozhoo! And just wanted to teleport in, say Boozhoo. That's how you doing? Say hello to the Boozhoo crew. Jessica's here. Boozhoo Jessica. She says, my mom watched the building comes down from the window of the office she was working in up on the 40th floor. She was actually there and saw it come down, huh? Wow. Daniel said, that couldn't have been pleasant. Jessica says, no, I was at school freaking out. Yeah, you must have had to wonder if your mother was even going to survive. Wow. I'm moving up a little bit here. Holy man, you guys are writing a lot. That is one song I'll never play again. Oh. Yeah, 9/11 was crazy. We were talking yesterday about, like, when is it okay to start making jokes? And, nobody was even joking about anything on 9/11. Everyone was just too freaked out. Do you remember where you were on 9/11? Yeah, I was living in Duluth. Oh, yeah. 9/11 was for my generation, kind of like my parents' generation's JFK. Everyone remembers where they were when John F. Kennedy was shot. But, I wasn't born yet. But everyone remembers where they were when 9/11 happened. And if you're old enough, you probably remember when the space shuttle blew up. There were big stuff like that where I can't believe it. The day the towers came down. And you know what the crazy thing about that day is too? People forget that 3 buildings went down. Eventually, when they talk about people who have no memory, like, those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it. Well, Tower 7, like even my mom, I mentioned this over like Thanksgiving or something. She goes, there were 3 top buildings that went down on 9/11? Yeah, only 2 had planes, apparently, allegedly run into them. But a third one went down in the same way, like it was being pulled, just dropped, super fast. And she goes, why? And it's, office fires, is the official story. Like fire jumped across the street, set some, copy paper on fire, and that spread, and then burned up the steel girders to a dust. And so it crumbled in its own footprint. But you can't question that, or you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you don't believe the official story? It's like, no. Do you even know what the official story was? 19 young men got together like the day before, took flying lessons, hijacked planes, and then flew 2 into New York, 1 into the Pentagon, 1 into a field, and pulverized, leaving no bodies or equipment behind itself. Yeah, that probably happened. Exactly the way they said it. Or maybe we were, who knows? That's the thing with conspiracy theories. If you say, if you call BS on something, then they want you to say, well, if you don't believe that, what did happen? It's like, well, I don't know what happened. I know what didn't happen. I don't believe that George Bush knew it was Osama bin Laden, 10 minutes after it happened. I don't believe that 3rd tower in New York fell from office fires. But they got people who don't trust their own eyes. They don't believe anything. They want someone to tell them what happened, and then you just either take their word for it or you don't. But no one wants to think for themselves. No one. Some people don't want. Hey, man, you're not supposed to do that. You're a chick. Everyone knows that chicks aren't supposed to play the drum. Oh, really? Well, say that to, that one chick from Prince's band, Sheena E. She wants a la to go to turn of life. Without love, it ain't much. She wants a glamorous life. She don't need a man's touch. They say that women should never sit at the drum. Oh, the drum is sacred. That is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And so women must stand behind a man, all subservient, and we can sing behind a man. But we must never sit at the drum, because Gitchy Manadoo, he gets really angry. Okay, Gitchy Manadoo. Yeah, what you want? Huh? Oh, jeez. I was just kind of mocking traditional customs. Yeah, I noticed that. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, Gitchy Manadoo, the Great Spirit. Hello. So what's up with that? How come ladies can't just sit at the drum? Oh, it's because you're so powerful, lass. Because I'm so powerful? That's right. I made women very spiritual. You've got spiritual energy. And it's just so much that it would be too much for the other men. So you must stand away. Really? Nah, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I think people just made up those rules. If the women are going to be singing, who's going to be making their coffee and sandwiches? Yeah, that might be. That's probably what's behind it. It's like, no, this is a man thing. Only men can sit. And so the women are like, okay, fine. You guys want something to eat? We're going to go in the kitchen and make some sandwiches. We'll make some coffee. I don't know. La 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 la. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for today. We didn't do anything today. I know, that was kind of a weird day. Well, you guys, I think on behalf of all the people at YouTube, that's the great thing about apologizing. You can really be a poser. Today's word of the day, Gagizom, is apologize. Nimanendam. I'm sorry. Nimanendam. On behalf of the internet, I would like to apologize for Lil Nas X. We're sorry. Never should have been recorded. None of that. We're sorry about that. On behalf of humanity, I would like to apologize for RuPaul. He shouldn't have been on Sesame Street. These are concepts and stuff that will only degrade the innocence of children. I would like, on behalf of everyone at the Children's Television Workshop, I would like to apologize for our kind of, not trying harder. We could have done so much more with Jim Henson's dream. But instead we sold out to celebrity worship. So on behalf of Kermit the Frog, and on behalf of the American people, on behalf of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I would like to issue a heartfelt apology to all of China. We played a joke too, and we went pee-pee in your Coke. Me Chinese, me play joke. And on behalf, anyway, I'm gonna get out. Hope you guys have an awesome Tuesday, an awesome Wednesday, and look for us. Let's do a Facebook show this afternoon. All right. We'll be back on Facebook to say hello to all the new Boozhoo crew people. We're waiting to get our, whatever. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Miigwech gonna mommy egg. Boozhoo Nanaboozhoo, the podcast about Ojibwe language and culture. I am Natasha. This is Nanaboozhoo. That is Michael Lyons. And I will see you again. Gigawabamin. Minawa. Hoa. Oh, brother.